Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. You've heard of them, of course. Two of the most common and most devastating brain disorders of our time. But what if they're not nearly as different as we've always thought? In this explainer, we're going to uncover a pretty surprising link between them, a link that could change everything we know about how to fight these diseases. I mean, when we think about these conditions, we usually see them as completely separate problems, right? They seem to affect the brain in fundamentally different ways. Alzheimer's is the one known for stealing memories, our thoughts, our very identity. And Parkinson's, that's the one we recognize by its relentless attack on the body's ability to move, causing tremors and stiffness. They really do seem worlds apart. But what if that really clear distinction is just what's on the surface? What if, deep down inside the brain, these two diseases are actually connected by a common culprit? Well, that's the exact question we are going to explore today. So, to understand why this connection is so incredibly important, we first have to get our heads around the sheer scale of the problem we're all facing. Okay, get this. Right now, in the US alone, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's affect nearly 8 million people combined. That is just an enormous number of individuals, families, and whole communities being impacted. And this problem, it's not standing still. Projections show that the number of people living with these diseases is expected to double by the year 2050. So this isn't just a health issue anymore, it's a rapidly escalating crisis. Okay, so let's just quickly go back to the classic understanding of these diseases. How are they different? Well, the answer really lies in what part of the brain they decide to attack first. Alzheimer's, as we know, usually targets the regions of the brain that are responsible for memory and thinking. And yeah, it's the leading cause of dementia. Parkinson's, on the other hand, it zeroes in on the parts of the brain that control our motor skills. That's what leads to those hallmark symptoms, the tremor, the slowed movement, the balance issues. So this brings up a really common and very important question. Since they're both brain diseases, does having Parkinson's mean you'll eventually get Alzheimer's? Well, the simple answer is no. Parkinson's disease doesn't just turn into Alzheimer's disease. But the real story is a little more complicated than that. You see, while it's not Alzheimer's, studies show that up to 70% of people with Parkinson's will eventually develop some form of dementia. So that really begs the question, what's actually going on here? And here's the crucial point to understand. Dementia isn't a single disease. It's actually an umbrella term for a set of symptoms, things like memory loss and confusion. You can kind of think of it like a fever. A fever is a sign that there's an underlying problem, but it's not the problem itself. Lots of different conditions can cause these dementia symptoms. Alzheimer's is, of course, the most famous cause, but there are others, like Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's itself. The dementia that can develop in people with Parkinson's is its own distinct condition, not Alzheimer's. So if they are different diseases, then what is this hidden connection we were talking about earlier? Well, the answer lies in something incredibly small, but also incredibly destructive. Both Alzheimer's and Parkinson's are linked to these toxic protein clumps in the brain. So here's the basic idea. Healthy proteins that are supposed to be doing a specific job, they just go rogue. They misfold, they become faulty, and then they start sticking together. These clumps are basically cellular garbage, and they disrupt communication between brain cells and trigger an inflammatory response that ultimately leads to the cells dying. So here we can see the different villains in our story. In Alzheimer's, the main culprits are proteins called beta-amyloid and tau, and they're the ones forming the clumps and tangles. In Parkinson's, the main bad actor is a protein called alpha-synuclein, but, and this is the key, researchers are often finding these proteins overlapping in patients, which is really starting to blur the lines between these diseases. So if the problem is similar, these faulty proteins, does that mean the solution could be similar too? Now, this is where the story starts to get really, really hopeful. The way we fight these diseases has evolved so much. For years, all we could really do was treat the symptoms, give Parkinson's patients drugs to regulate dopamine for their movement. But just recently, we've had a massive breakthrough. New Alzheimer's drugs that actually target and remove the root cause, those amyloid protein clumps. This success is a total game changer, and it's paving the way for researchers to develop similar drugs that can target the toxic proteins in Parkinson's. And this all brings us to a really powerful conclusion about the future of brain research and how we have to approach these conditions from now on. We just can't think of these diseases in isolation anymore. That hidden connection to toxic protein clumps means that a discovery in Alzheimer's research can directly inform and speed up progress for Parkinson's, and vice versa. It's this incredible ripple effect of knowledge. Just as the American Brain Foundation says, we have to invest across the full spectrum of brain diseases. Because by understanding their shared foundations, we can unlock completely new ways to diagnose, treat, and, ultimately, cure them all. So we're left with a final, pretty tantalizing question. The lines between these diseases are blurring, and right there in that shared space, there's new hope. What if solving the puzzle of Alzheimer's gives us the final key we need to unlock a cure for Parkinson's? The answer? It's out there, just waiting for us to find it.